Okay, now I did it. I just cut all the wires in the helm, ripped out my gauge panel. I started to install the new gauge panel, but there's just too many wires in there that are fed off improper wires, jumpered, spliced here and there, and it's just a jumble. Half of them are just way too short. You can't even get to the panel. Also, it has, the way that they did this wiring, there is two plugs. One of them goes from, from the engine harness into the panel, and then right on the back of all these gauges they piggyback the upper helm plug right off the back of these gauges, so it just makes everything a jumble, way too tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so the harness comes to a terminal strip inside the helm, and then off the terminal strip this will be cut and it will be gone right to these wires. And then for the upper helm doesn't need to come from the gauges, that will also come from the terminal strip, which will be inside. So this is just way too difficult to work with, and there's probably about a third of those wires that can come out of there. So I'm just gonna take this home. I can wire up 50% of the job at home and make a wire harness for this panel, which would go to the bus bar, which I have ordered. So I can wire this up home to all the, from all the gauges, inputs and outputs, and then to the bus bar, and then the same thing when it goes to the upper helm. These wires will be cut and then installed with ring terminals to the bus bar as well. So it's just a mess. Alright, I get about 75% of this will be easy. Some of it is going to have to be me tracing some wires, so I've just made a lot of work for myself. I could have got this in, but to me the wiring is just too shoddy, too many cuts, too many crimps, and as I was working on it, some of the crimps were pulling out, so some of them just weren't up to standards, and they would just be trouble down the road. So gotta bite the bullet. I've got time. I can't take the boat out yet anyways. We got too much stuff going on, so I got this nice new panel. What better time to wire it up than now? Alright, bye. Alright, I think I'm done with the panel. I think I've done some changes, reconfigured a few things. I think this is how it's going to be, at least for now. There might be one more change in the future, but for now I'm going to run it like this for a little while. Did some changes to the start button that I didn't like before, and so then I've labeled this stuff over here, and I still have some more labels to do, and I have some open spaces which will be used for various things. And I like this one with the cover. The old one didn't have a cover, so it looks a lot better. So let's power it up. Okay, it is powered up. So we got powering up with a power supply, 12.5 volts. This is simulating that I have power to the horn. This light will normally only be on when the horn circuit is powered up. So on the boat, if I don't have the horn circuit powered up and the air pump powered up, this light won't be on. So if I look at the panel and I don't have that light, I don't have a horn. So I need to go to the electrical closet, turn it on. When I have a light, I have a horn. So then we can turn it on. You can see a couple different things. This is actually the instrument lights, and it also dims that. There's a input wire to dim that because it is a little bit bright. It's not too bad. I've looked at it at night. It's not horrible. It could be a little dimmer, but it's okay. I like how dim this one is. If this one was a little bit like that, I would be happier. And of course, the rest of these instruments light up. The one change that I did make is that normally when I turn this on, this engine start button was lit up, which I do like. I like having it lit up because it tells you have start power. However, it was just too bright, and at night, if we were operating at night, I think it would be too bothersome. So I just rewired it. I had to think about how to rewire it, but you just reverse the power connections through the switch, and it'll still make contact, but now it just lights when you start, and that's it. So then of course we got oil pressure, water temperature, This is an Entratec dual fuel filter water sensor. So it's meant and came with parts that get mounted in the Raycore. Of course, I've got the dual Raycores. You can see the other video where I installed that. So it has dual Raycores, and then there's a sensor in each Raycore. So right now I have it so that the port Raycore is the one that's feeding the engine. If there's water in it, then it will, let me see which one's which here. Not that one. So if the water level reaches a certain height, it'll ground out the system through the sensor, and it'll light that button. So that's going to alert me that I need to go down there, change the Raycore from port to starboard, and this one is also being monitored. So that works good. This buzzer right here is grounded. I can simulate that here. Grounded. It's nice and annoying. That's exactly how you want it. I could put a silence button in there, but so this is the ground wire right here, which goes to the circuit to the oil pressure switch and the water temperature switch. Not the senders for the gauges, but separate switches. So when either one of those switches grounds out to the engine block, that's all it does, is those switches ground out, cause the buzzer to come on, telling you that you have an issue with oil pressure or oil temperature. And so you really need this buzzer to work. It's really what's going to tell you that you have an issue. And then if you get a buzzer, then if it's oil, if you have a buzzer, you don't know which one actually turned it on. So then you would check your gauges, of course, and see if you have a corresponding issue. If you don't, then you could have a bad switch. But if you have the low oil pressure switch grounding out, meaning a loss of pressure, and you have corresponding low oil pressure, then you need to take it seriously and pull over an anchor in a safe spot. Same goes for temperature. This is just a standard stop button for the stop solenoid. These will be left and right windshield wipers. However, I don't know, maybe you guys can comment. I don't know why you would need left and right windshield wipers. Why wouldn't you just have one switch for both wipers? Because there is a problem. I figured out as I was digging into my panel that I also have a switch that was installed on the panel for the blower, and I would like to put the blower on the panel. So I'm now thinking about having this switch power both windshield wipers. If I have to use a relay, I will, because this is a kind of a light duty switch, and then make this one for the engine room blower. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do there. So that's how the panel has come out. I think it's pretty good, especially compared to the old system. There is one more change that I might make, and that is I picked this up off eBay, and you can find them on eBay every now and then. This is a new old stock flow scan, and if you look at some of my old videos, I installed a flow scan, but it's just a needle type, gauge type. It gives no other information other than current flow with a needle, which is not all that accurate. It's accurate, but it's not a fine number to calculate with. So I might put this one in. So the old one, it's a needle and it has a totalizer, which is useful information for sure, but not like this. So also this one is actually must be a late model one before Flow Scan closed the doors, because in this version it also takes NEMA 183 information for GPS speed over ground, and we'll put this in, and then you put another switch in, and this gallon per hour right here, if you turn the switch, will give you miles per gallon, which is exactly the kind of information that you would really like to know. Now that some people say, well, what do you need that for? Because once you kind of calculate how your boat operates, at a specific RPM, it should never change. Well, that's not true. If you've got big headwind, if you've got a long leg ahead of you, 100 miles or 200 miles, or you're making the crossing on the Great Loop in Florida, you know, and you've got a long distance to go and you're not sure about fuel, this will help make the calculation, and it's dependent on currents, tides, and wind, and bottom growth, things like that. So you might set out, find out that, you know, after 20 miles that you're doing fuel calculations that you're going to be cutting it close, and maybe you don't have your 10% or 20% reserve, whatever you operate with. This will tell you that in real time, so you can make calculations way ahead of time, not just based on what your RPM is, because that's only going to tell you. So also in this, it does fit in that spot. This one has RPM, gallons per hour, and miles per gallon, a totalizer to total gallons burned. Also has an hour meter. If you notice, I took the hour meter out from my old panel because I was just going to put it on the side, but then I found this gauge and bought it. So I can put this here and have all that information right there. So I'm still not sure. I may still mount this on the side of the helm where the current flow scan is. We'll see, and just keep this there and just use this as redundant systems. But we'll see. I'm not exactly sure. I like the way this panel looks right now. I'll probably operate with this for a while and then decide where I want to put this. So this was nice to get. And then we've labeled some things here. Still got a few more labels. I got to check a few things on the existing wires. So really, I was just from memory and the notes that I had, I was able to get all the wires identified except one. I think that's it, and then I'll show this when it's installed and started up and working, and I guess I'll show some of it being hooked up as well, and whatever else I discover on the boat, because I'm sure there's still a few things to discover. So that's it. That's how it came out. We'll see how it goes. Alright, so I just came down to the boat today, get a couple things done, starting to clean up this helm wiring. This is everything that I took out that was just not used at all, that wasn't hooked up to really anything, and it was just so intermixed and intermingled in there. So I'm starting to get some things. This is one thing I didn't account for. Come to find out, this is the blower. So he put this switch in, and he's got it so that the panel turns the blower on, and then he put a remote switch on the helm. So I'll probably do the same. So I'll have to do something. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to put that. And then these are the windshield wipers, which are still intact. This is the horn, so that makes hookup easy. I just need to probably put new terminals on this. This wire right here will be shortened. This is for the flow scan that I have installed over here, and so this should be a lot better when I'm done with it. My terminal, I'll get all this vacuumed out, get all the wires, existing wires, cut down to size so there's not so much extra, and then this is just a USB charger, voltage gauge. And then, so cleaning up the other side of these wires is actually in the electrical closet. So I'm kind of tackling some of this at the same time, which in some of my previous videos I showed that I needed to get this squared away. Well, one of the things, this is the harness right here. This long harness is actually, let's see, where does this one go? This one is the this is the actual engine harness from the engine, and then it goes to the upper helm up there. Now this was just bundled up and tie wrapped up, and I already pulled some of it through up top, but this was all wrapped right around there and just made a big jumble of everything. So, and then this one goes from, like I was telling you, on the back of the gauges previously, and then this goes to the upper helm. So you can see how these are all tangled in wires, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it just doesn't make for easy access. It's not supported. So I'm going to be shortening, since I got to cut that plug off, I'm going to be shortening this a considerable amount. There's no reason, I mean, I could just bundle it down in the engine bay, but I have to cut it anyway. So I am going to, I mean, I'll leave myself a service loop in here somewhere, but I'm probably going to attach it up there, and then that's a good start in here. And then once that's clear, I can start to clean up some of these other add-on wires, at least get them routed properly. That's half the problem. Like, some of the wiring in here isn't bad, it's just not routed. And so if somebody adds something on and you know, they don't route it properly, or they don't try to put it on the, you know, in the wiring looms there, and they just kind of lay it over something, or zip tie it to a hydraulic line or something, you know, that's, and then they do that 10 more times as they add or subtract, and then when they take out old equipment, then they just don't remove all the old wire properly and reroute new wires. So I'm kind of excited about going ahead and getting this done. Another one like that is this one right here. That is for the Westerbeek generator panel, which is not in a great spot either. I may relocate that as well. So if I could get those two out of the way, actually 3 out of the way, that will go a long way towards cleaning this up. And this was actually a rewire of shore power previously, and again, they just didn't support it, didn't run it well. I know the guy that did this, and he's actually a marine electrician, and I think he just did it this way because it was such a mess before, and he wasn't paid to clean up the whole closet. So he did a good job on it, and all that stuff works very well. And he redid the shore power plugs and shore power switch and generator switch. And then this is actually cable, so that's going to have to stay there. Throttle and transmission cables. So that stays there. We'll see. Be glad to get some of this routed properly. All the existing wire over here, you know, these are the add-ons, like this one, this one, this one, a couple of the other ones, some of these over here. But the existing wiring is still fine. Nobody, if nobody's messed with it, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, even the terminals aren't really corroded, just an extremely light corrosion on them. Some of the neutral wires and the ground wires could be cleaned up a little bit, but it's really not that bad. It ain't, you know, it ain't pretty like some of the new boats or some of the you know, wiring stuff that's shared on the internet that's perfect. That stuff's nice and all, and if I could start fresh, I would make it look pretty nice. But it really just has to be functional, proper, and accessible. So this is about 3/4 functional and proper. 1/4 of it's not functional and improper, but none of it's really accessible because they just added everything on there. So if I can get this just to be functional, proper, and accessible with just some cleaning, and then cleaning up and shortening and rerouting, and taking out a lot of unused wires, and then I can, you know, get everything routed and properly tucked away, then I'll be perfectly happy with it. And I'm sure during that I will find any shortcomings, other shortcomings in the systems, and we'll see. It might look like a lot, but in reality it's not that much, because about 75% of these wires are not going to be changed around. You know, all those wires on the back wall, they're going to stay. I mean, I might get in there and clean some of them and re-terminate a few, but the wires themselves will stay. You know, we've got to get the covers back on these things and get the wires routed properly in there, and put the covers back on. But overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is about a 6. Honestly, it looks worse than it is, and once I get it cleaned up, it'll be much better. All right, we'll see how the rest goes.